that's the way to do it. Is what thought processes and actions are your audience going to be taking, and how do I make a good situation out of that?
Welcome to the RV Entrepreneur Podcast, the weekly show for nomads, work campers, RVers, and entrepreneurs looking to earn a living or build a business while enjoying the RV lifestyle. This week's host is Jim Nelson. Let's settle in and enjoy the RV Entrepreneur Podcast, brought to you by RV Life.
What could possibly be stressful about camping? I mean, it's a totally relaxing lifestyle, right? Well, working from the road certainly adds some stress to RVing, and travel days can be tiring, but new RVers face their own challenges, and that's where my guests today are helping out. I'm Jim at RV Life, and today on the RV Entrepreneur, I'm talking with Tony and Peggy Barthel about the work they're doing at StressLess Camping, or StressLess Camping, which is the niche they've defined for the content they produce. And that takes shape with the StressLess Camping podcast and in live courses they teach at campgrounds, dealerships, and RV rallies around the country. Tony and Peggy deliver a 3-day RV basics seminar. They cover all the basic systems and procedures to help any RVer enjoy, well, stressless camping. We talk about the research and outreach they do to land speaking gigs, how they plan their trips, and the tools they use to manage their projects and produce the podcast. Spoiler alert, they're big RV Life Trip Wizard fans. So let's dive into my discussion about teaching RV courses from the road with Tony and Peggy from StressLessCamping.com right after this brief message from another sponsor that helps make this show possible.
Hey RVers, let's be real. Your RV shower head isn't great. And even if you swapped it out for something better, chances are it's just a shinier version of the same old thing. And if you're really lucky, those stiff hose kind of let you get wet, but definitely not where you want it. That's where WaterPick comes in. A global leader in water technology, they've designed the Transform RV showerhead to change the way you shower on the road, making it easier and more efficient to shower in tight RV spaces. While other RV showerheads have limited spray adjustments, the Transform RV's unique 360-degree pivoting head allows you to customize to any spray angle without having to remove it from the bracket. This means you can reach your desired spray area and shower with both hands free. This shower head doesn't just work better, it feels better. It's engineered to deliver powerful, consistent water flow. Its multiple spray settings are optimized to get the most out of your water tank. And with the new trickle switch, you can conserve water without that shocking blast of cold or hot water when you turn it back on. It's available in white, chrome, and nickel. The WaterPick Transform RV showerhead is ready to upgrade your RV shower. Head over to Amazon and check it out now.
Tony, Peggy, thank you so much for joining me. It's been quite a while since we chatted. It's good to see you again.
Good to see you too.
Good to see you too.
I was just looking up at the records there, and it was 2021 where Renee and I jumped on your show, and we'll drop a link into the show notes about that StressLess podcast, StressLess Camping podcast with Tony and Peggy Barthel. But this is technically the RV Life Entrepreneur podcast. So I ask all my guests a couple questions just to get you real quick lightning round here. Tony, when did you guys first discover the RV life together, and how is that any different now?
Oh, wow. I think we've always had an interest in RVs. We have had vintage, I guess you would call it we've had a vintage Corvair camper.
Nice.
And we have done camping and such. We had a old Jayco pop-up. So I think as long as we've known, Peggy's been camping her whole life. So, and I think I have too. So together, we've been together now 20 years. So I guess 20 years ago.
And Peggy, you guys are pretty much working from the road, doing the things you do that we're going to jump into. But what does it mean to be an entrepreneur to you guys?
Oh boy. You asked the person who's really not. So as a matter of fact, I probably without Tony would not be an entrepreneur. I'm good at following directions and doing the things that need to be done, but I'm not that well wired for doing it myself. But doing it still means to me that we get to have the freedom to go where we want to go and do the things we want to do. And yes, they say you can make your own hours. And yes, those hours are 24/7. But usually that means we're driving somewhere. That's work for us now.
The best thing is you are your own boss, and the worst thing is you are your own boss.
Yes.
Funny how that works.
So let's talk about StressLess Camping or StressLess Camping as a brand choice there. What could possibly be stressful about camping? Isn't it all just marshmallows and lazy days?
We always say it's more a goal than a reality.
Okay.
And if you've ever been at a campground, and especially me is there, and I'm stringing along the words my mom told me not to say, it's a goal, not a reality, right? So that's the deal of stressless camping.
But I think the idea is to let those things happen, deal with them, learn from them, and then, next time it either won't happen or you'll be able to quickly take care of it and move on to the next thing that happens.
Right.
Yeah.
So what inspired that name, and how does it reflect your personal philosophies on RVing?
Well, I used to work at an RV dealership, and I would get, a lot of people coming in and asking the same questions over and over and over again. And I thought, gosh, I really wish there was a place I could point these people to that answered those questions and made the RV experience something that's easier and more relaxing. And then we were on a road trip with a friend, and I was telling her about this, and she says, oh, we're like kicking around names. She goes, how about StressLess Camping? So Peggy gets on her phone and buys the URL right there on the spot, like somewhere on the 5 freeway.
Yeah.
It's similar to the Live Work Dream story that we started when we were selling our business, and we were selling more of a live work experience and a live work house and business and everything. And hey, that's a great idea, and register it. And next thing you know, here we are 17 years later, and it's an RV lifestyle blog. But let's take a look at your unique paths. You mentioned some different entries into the RV world. Tony, you mentioned working at an RV dealership. And I'm wondering how that shaped your perspective. What did you kind of mentioned it, but what did you learn there that kind of now you bring to your educational work, teaching others about RVing?
A few things. So this dealership is small enough that I not only sold RVs, but I also managed the warranty department.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I got to see both sides of that. And I think what I learned is a lot of people just jump into this blindly. And it's a big expense, right? I mean, even a cheap travel trailer is $15,000 to $30,000, but people will just come in with this vision of, I get to go camping, and buy these things knowing almost nothing. I mean, obviously not everybody, right? There are some people who are very into the research and all that. And so I learned that they tend to get themselves in trouble because they're not familiar with these systems, and these RVs, as we all know, they can be troublesome if you don't operate things correctly or take care of stuff. And I see a lot of frustration that doesn't necessarily have to be there.
I see that. So, Peggy, you've mentioned basically been camping your entire life. How has that deep experience shaped how you teach and share knowledge about RVing?
Well, it really helps me especially when we are doing anything about boondocking. When we first got our first travel trailer, not the pop-up, but because we had the pop-up, and before that my mom had a what we now know as a vintage travel trailer, but it wasn't back then, of course, and a motorhome. Tony said, I want a boondock. And I said, well, why would you boondock when you have all these hookups on the outside of the camper that you can use? Not knowing that those were there in the old campers, but we never used them. The way that our family camped was boondocking. We just didn't have that word back then.
Mm-hmm.
And so, excuse me. And so the concept of boondocking, it really took him a while to talk me into it. And then I finally said, oh, you mean camping. And so, having been growing up camping, in small travel trailer, in a tent, in the back of my car, in all the different ways, I think that helps me. If anybody wants to try a different kind of experience, I want a drivable, but I have a towable, or vice versa, or I want to just, pitch a tent. I kind of understand all those different concepts.
It's great you have that wide range of experience, and now you guys are helping others learn all the different types of RVing. You got the podcast, you got the channel, and on-site teaching events that I want to focus on here first for a minute. You mentioned that you have a travel calendar on your website, and it revolves around these events. What does that look like in a typical year? Do you follow certain routes every year that you return to, or how does that take shape?
No, we go where the classes book.
Right.
What we try to do is, if I have a class, let's say we have an event going on in Indiana this year, and so someone wanted to book a class in Ohio, and I said, well, we're already going to be on that part of the country, so let's work around our schedule for being in Indiana anyway. We did. Earlier this year, we actually went from home in New Mexico to Perry, Georgia for FRVA, back to Texas to teach a class, and back to Indiana.
Wow.
The timing just didn't quite work to make a smooth circle, but we made it work out. That was okay. But we try to kind of, if we're going to be in a certain part of the country, we try to book more things in that part of the country.
And it's gotten some people reach out to us and go, oh, when are you going to be in, here or there? And so we'll kind of save that up and say, hey, you know what? It works out that we can come to your neck of the woods this area of the year. And so we do, like, we have classes coming up in Ohio, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Northern California and what is it? Reno, that kind of thing.
Yep.
So
I was going to ask, like, which comes first, the trip planning or the event schedule? Do you plan a route and then look for events, but it sounds like there's a melding of both. If you have a big target event, then there might be things you plan along the way. How do you go about confirming gigs? How do you pitch sessions? Do you reach out to campgrounds or find rallies along the way? How do you get those additional stops when you have a certain thing planned?
Well, some is we work with some organizations, like groups of campers. One of those, for example, is Girl Camper. We have done quite a few classes through them. Some is through dealerships or campgrounds. We have campgrounds that book this. We work with some local dealerships, because what we describe, maybe we should describe what the class is.
Yeah, please.
We call it a 3-day version of your 1-hour walkthrough. So what we do is bring together people and their RVs. So you bring your RV with you, and we go over basically how all the systems work, and ideals, tips, tricks, that kind of thing, so that they can go back to their RV and actually turn the knobs or light the water heater or whatever it happens to be. And when they're done, they actually know how to use the rig and maintain it.
Yeah.
Well, that's the objective. And that's why these are in person, because we want people to have their RVs, because more often than not, they have some pain points, and our goal is to help them with that. And sometimes that's learning how to back a trailer. Sometimes we had one attendee very recently who had never opened the propane bottles on her RV because she was not comfortable with that. And so it's those kind of things. It's really learning to get the most out of your rig. And it does tend to appeal to newer people, which is one reason we reach out to dealerships, because like I say, it's a 2.5 day version of their 1 hour walkthrough.
Are these usually held at a campground? It sounds like they're almost hands-on workshops. So if you're working with a dealership, you'd still be hosting it somewhere where people can come with their RVs?
Right. So we do have them at campgrounds. And even though we really encourage boondocking, we try to always have them with hookup, at least electrical hookups and some kind of, water and sewer availability, so that they can actually learn to use these things. Because here's the 4-second version of our boondocking preparation. Go to a campground, don't plug in.
Right.
Just see how long you can do it. And so, but we always want to give them that sort of, I hate to call it a crutch, but that, instead of trying to learn how to boondock first, learn how to use everything and then unplug it all and boondock.
Well, I mean, think of how many times we've had RVs show up that are still winterized, and the first question is, how do I de-winterize this thing? So, and so they're at campgrounds because you have the hookups there, and and our final exam is you dumping your tanks. So.
Okay, so you're running through the basics, and then it's a hands-on of show us what you learned today.
Yeah, and it's all hands-on. If we it's kind of seminar style. The other good thing about a lot of campgrounds is there's a gathering space. So no matter the weather, we can be indoors and have a comfortable, tables and stuff so they can write notes. But then during breaks or between classes, between seminars, if someone says, I like what you said, but I don't know if I know how to do it on my RV, then we just walk them to their RV and make them, help them do it. Not make them. I make them do it themselves. Sure. Yes.
There's an educational component, and then people can go back to their rigs, or you test them by going to each of the individual attendees' rigs and seeing that they can do these processes. I think that's wonderful because, Tony, you mentioned new RVers, and I'm at an RV park for the past week, and I've seen rigs with the sticker still on it show up, and I've seen lots of rentals come in, and you see like what I'll call the rookie maneuvers. The guy next to me just went to fill his freshwater tank and moved his RV so the hose would reach around the front instead of just tossing it under the rig to get where he could, and he spilt water in his doorway. So it sounds like he'd benefit from some of these. Do you work with any of the rental companies to teach courses, or is it mostly when people with new RVs?
It's people with their RVs. Some of them have had them for some number of years. We also seem to get a fair number of vintage RVs. Okay. And maybe that's because we just kind of live in that world to some degree. So it's all kinds. For a while, we were getting those horse trailers that also had living quarters in them, which was interesting.
I would encourage, if someone said, I really want to come to this class and I really want to get my hands on things, but I don't have an RV, can I rent one? A lot of the components of RVing are the same. You hook your water up to where you hook your water up.
Yeah.
Right. And so if that is a way that someone feels that they can get their hands-on experience, then I would encourage that. We've also had people who came 1 year, to one class getting ready to buy. And then the following year they had purchased their RV. So they came back because it would stick better when you're actually touching your own RV.
Right. This episode is made possible by Travelfy. Want reliable internet without the hassle? Meet Travelfy. It's portable, high-speed Wi-Fi that's ready to go wherever you are. From road trips to remote cabins. No tricky setup or permanent location required. Just plug in and you're connected. And here's the best part. No contracts, no commitments, and no reactivation fees. Pay only for the months you need. Travelfy connects to the strongest available signal among multiple major networks, so you stay online with confidence, backed by a US-based support team that knows the outdoor lifestyle. Travelfy, simplifying internet while you travel. Visit travelfy.com today. That's TRAVLFI.com. Listeners can save 15% with code RVE at checkout. So I think it could benefit anyone. Okay, Renee and I have been RVing 17 plus years, and we got a new rig, and we've had it quite a few months, and we go to a new campsite, and I pulled the most rookie maneuver, not knowing I did, and I panicked. I pulled a valve on the sewer, and nothing's coming out. And oh my God, I jumped to the worst conclusion. I thought there was construction debris in the plumbing somewhere. I had dumped just a few days before. I start pulling the underbelly out. She starts calling people to come and do it. I said, there's lots of panic going on. And I go to take the hose off, and it's full of water. So I immediately remembered that I left the little cap on the hose where I connected the two hoses. And thank God for that, because it was a simple conclusion. But here I am, seasoned RVer, and pulled these, just stupid mistakes. It's like motorcyclists who tend to have accidents after motorcycling 10 years because they get complacent. So it sounds like your audience could benefit anyone. How do you tailor the content for a certain group when you might have first-time RVers and those travelers that need a refresher?
I think we kind of assume that everyone is new, really first timers, unless, we get a whole group and they all say, we've been doing this or whatever, then we might skip some of the more basic stuff. But I think we tend to go through the basics as if they're new. And the good thing about that, like you said, you've been doing it for a long time, and we've said this too, we have checklists. And sometimes I go, oh, I know everything that's on the checklist. And then I forget something. And then I'm like, no, I'm new. I got to go back and use the checklist as if I'm new. So even people who are seasoned RVers who have come to the classes learn something or remember something that they haven't done in a long time because they hadn't been using their list, or they, forgot that they could do it that way. So I think we don't try to go too deep into anything. We really keep it at a basics level.
And that's good. You found the niche there, and I may need to go and dig out that checklist we used to have. And when we first hit the road, we had the remove before flight tags on things to do, make sure the slide's in and that sort of thing. And you kind of mentioned some things that you're teaching there, but what can attendees expect to learn? What are some of the key basics that RVers need to understand, and what are they learning at these courses?
We go through all the basics of the systems, obviously the water system, propane system, electrical system. We don't specifically cover solar and off-grid power systems unless somebody says they want that. And the good thing is, it's typically like 9 to 3 each day, time-wise, and that leaves plenty of time afterwards to go over any specifics that people want, because we could sit around afterwards and have a beer and talk whatever the system, specific things. So it's all the basic functions and also proper maintenance, because I've found that an RV can last a very long time if it's maintained properly, but it can also be a piece of junk in short order if it's not. So it's, that kind of things, how to keep your RV out of the shop is another thing we discuss.
So you're touching on the basic maintenance that I swear by. We kept our rigs in great shape for years by, changing out the anodes in the water heater and making sure the tires are proper. But then when we started searching for a new rig, we wanted to buy used, we wanted to pay cash, and we were looking at rigs that were just a few years old, just trashed. Or, just, not properly maintained. So maintenance is a key thing there. Do you get any common questions you hear over and over again, regardless of the experience level of your audience? What are some things people really want to know?
I think, so before the class comes, usually there's some kind of interaction, Facebook group or emails back and forth or something. Nice. And a lot of people say, I hope you cover backing in. That seems to be a thing that a lot of people feel they need more confidence in. And I don't like to say, it's not that they can't or they're afraid. I don't like those words, but they just want more confidence in being able to do that.
So you're getting into the, individual rig types then, because someone might be backing a fifth wheel or a trailer, or they might have a Class A with a towed. So are you, because there's RV driving schools out there, but do you get into depth with people and like hitching up and disconnecting tows and that sort of thing? Or is it more about maintenance of the rig itself?
Well, we do talk about hitching, but our experience is exclusively towable RVs.
Okay.
And so we can, help you find resources and stuff if you have a Class A with a towed, but I would never try to help somebody or try to tell someone how to do it because I've never done it.
Okay.
And we don't tend to get a ton of Class A's.
I think we've had one.
I think we're
towable people. I mean, that's where we focus, and that's.
But we would never turn anybody away. I mean, if that's what they have and want to learn, we will find answers for them.
Don't worry, we'll talk them into a towable. They'll learn how to do things right.
We're on the same team here.
The audience is like throwing daggers,
right? So. You've been doing this a while. What are some of the more memorable experiences from teaching on the road? Do you have any particular locations or events that stand out or some whoopee moments from different audiences?
Oh, I have, a couple that I can specifically remember. One is there was a couple and she was very attentive and he knew everything, right? I mean, no surprise there.
He did.
Right. So at the end, he's jacking up it was a trailer. He had his rear stabilizers down and he's lifting his trailer with the tongue jack and lifted the wheels, started to lift the wheels off the ground. And it's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And again, he was one of those, oh yeah, I do this all the time. And
not this time.
And then another was a lady with a horse trailer. Was it the horse trailer who didn't have her heater?
So this is how we learn to arrive early. Usually we try to arrive at a campground a day early. So we're completely set up and ready to go. And when students start arriving, we're there to greet them. We've made a checklist for just setting up camp. And that checklist includes things like, do you know how to get hot water? Do you know how to get water? Because we had a class, it was in Northern California, but it was in December. And she came to the, classroom in the morning and said, I hope we learn how to turn on the furnace because I froze last night. Because we hadn't thought to do this, arrival checklist. And so now that is a part of your arriving. We'll help you back in if that's what you want. I make sure that you know how. If you want them, you know how to use them. Now, some people on check-in day are like, no, I don't use my propane, so I'm not going to. Yeah. By the end, I have them have their propane on and turn on all the propane things to make sure that they all work.
Wonderful. You guys, do you offer any of these checklists to the audience or on your website? There's handouts, that sort of thing?
In fact, we have an article on our website about checklists make for stressless camping, and we have these downloadable and customizable because every rig is different,
right?
And so they can download and customize the checklist.
And we also put together a binder, so all the things that we talk about are written out, and then they have little kind of, I call them homework assignments. When we talk about electricity and 30 amps and what that means, then, one of your homework assignments while you're eating your lunch, go around and see all those electrical things that you use and how many amps you need them, for them, so that they kind of really get an idea of what that really entails.
Sounds like there's some real value there. And real briefly, you mentioned Facebook groups. Do you have a group, or is there sometimes groups for each event so people can connect before and after?
Usually the host will put together a group, and then all of the people that sign up under that host. In the very, very beginning, we tried to be hosts and teachers. And we found that, we're trying to make sure you have a meal and make sure that, all those things, do things on your off time. That became too much for us. Mm-hmm. And we're going to new places where we don't really know where a good place to eat or a good place to kayak or whatever. So we really prefer to have an organizer, a host of some sort that is putting that kind of stuff together, and then they'll do a Facebook page or
That makes
group.
sense.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some logistics for a minute here. Do you have any specific apps or platforms you guys are using, both for trip planning and managing the event schedule and project management? So what do you use for planning your trips, for instance?
We use RV Trip Wizard.
Of course. Is there any other app?
Otherwise, you'd have to hang up on us now.
No. They only make the show possible, but it's great to hear that. What about for...
It's a great tool.
Oh, thank you. What about for like project management and scheduling? Do you guys have any tools or platforms you guys use? Is it all Google or Slack or anything, or is it just Post-its and talking to each other?
We use, we're Apple people, so we use Numbers, which is like Excel.
Okay.
And I think that's about as far as we get.
I put a lot of things in calendars. We have a lot of different calendars that I keep track of things. And yeah, like Tony said, like a spreadsheets of things.
So numbers, notes, and calendar, that sort of thing.
Yep.
That's enough for you there. Which leads me to the question, you're teaching these things at locations, and there's so many coaching and teaching platforms available now. Why aren't you offering any online classes, or are you, or is that in the works?
That is in the works. Thank you for option C. It's something, especially at the end of every weekend or 3-day class, as we are winding down, we say, we've got to get this on the website. So we do intend to do that. It just hasn't quite worked itself out yet.
We haven't finished it yet, but we've started it.
Yeah.
But that's
as if you don't have enough going on with the podcast and the channel and the events, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's like the tiki bar in our backyard.
Ooh.
We've started it by thinking of it, and that's as far as we've gotten.
We have lists and pictures, and I'm not a big Pinterest person, but if I was, there'd be a tiki bar Pinterest, whatever it's called.
Sure. But there's so many platforms to choose from, and models and funnels and products and offerings and coaching and groups that you have to maintain. So it does take some thought going into that, which is a great segue into the kind of the logistics and business side that you guys are currently doing. So what does it take to organize one of these events? Do you handle the logistics, or does the host and the partner handle the logistics? People signing up? How does a typical event shape up for the attendee?
We look to find a local host who handles registrations and such. And sometimes that local host is a campground owner, for example, or a dealership if they choose to do this. So that's typically who takes that responsibility, but we work with them because our background is in marketing. And so we'll reach out, once we know, hey, we're going to be in this place, we'll reach out to every RV dealer and campground in the area. And we have pages that we share with them and say, hey, this is a great opportunity to be a hero to your customers or whatever, so that it brings people in.
Are they usually offering these courses free to attendees?
No, gosh, no.
So people are paying.
In fact, for campgrounds, the real benefit is midweek business. Okay. So we tend to work with them to fill fill some spots in the campground midweek rather than on weekends. So it would be incremental business for a campground.
They'll offer it as like a value add service. Come and attend this course, stay a few days and learn all these things. And that kind of leads me into like, how did this business model of yours take shape? And are you earning speaking fees, or how do you generate business from these attendees? I mean, revenue.
We ask the host, the organizer, to pay us a certain amount per person. Do we talk about the money?
Probably not.
Numbers aren't necessary.
Yeah.
Right.
So we ask them to pay us per student or per RV. If it's a lot of them that we do are female only, but when it's not female only, if a couple comes in an RV, we don't charge for each person. We kind of charge for the RV. And the materials. We're teaching the same amount of stuff,
right.
No matter what.
But some of these organizers go pretty elaborate with meals and that, and others it's like, hey, show up and camp here and learn things. So each organizer is also different in how they attack this. But yeah, we earn a fee to have the classes, and then it also, we stay in touch with the former attendees, so that's another source of just follow up, I guess.
And there's alternative forms of currency that I often reference. So this is opening this whole audience to your content, your podcast, your channel, your website, and whatever offerings may become available there. So that kind of addresses, how you're earning from this in many ways. What are certain challenges you might face at certain on-site events? Is there weather or venue space or certain technology or any nightmares you can remember?
I don't know why. When you say technology, like all I think of is Wi-Fi. So we don't require any, we don't need any kind like that. We bring a paper binder for everybody. We do love to have an indoor venue, but we've been in places where we're just under an easy up, or we're under a gazebo awning kind of thing, an awning if there's a few enough people, and the weather works out. We've been fortunate that anytime we've been where there isn't great weather, we've had the opportunity to be indoors.
Yeah, but I mean, there's been times where it's cold. I mean, we're really we wouldn't want to do this in like Minnesota in November or something like that, because I'm not going there at that time of year. But we try to plan these when the weather should be better, in theory. And so, yeah, we haven't. In fact, the most recent class was in Texas, and when we left, we were dodging tornadoes. But when we were there, it was great. So the weather eye was looking down favorably on us
until you get through Tornado Alley there.
Oh gosh, right? Why do I go there at that time of year? I don't know what it is.
No kidding. You learn that part. And not to create competition or give away any secrets, but let's say there's RVers out there who would love to teach on certain subjects on the road or at events. What are some first steps you might recommend they take to turn their skills into a workshop, or walk through how you guys did it?
I'd just put together a collection of all of the things that you can in terms of knowledge and helping others. Maybe, I mean, research would be look at these social media groups and look at the questions people have. And maybe if you are able to answer those with, that would benefit somebody, maybe put together a list of what you have to offer. And then, as always, whatever business you're in the business of marketing, then learn how to sell it.
Yeah. And because it always go ahead.
There's no way we could reach a tiny fraction of this country, right? We haven't even been to the New England states, for example. So there's these people who want to gain this knowledge all over the US.
Yeah.
And so there's plenty of opportunity out there.
And to me, it always comes back to determining your niche. You guys have this 3-day course that you've nailed down for basics. I am a total different world. My niche is 3-legged dogs and cats with a support community that we maintain. Other people might focus on Airstream owners or a particular, boondocking courses that they might set up and disperse camping somewhere. So it comes down to finding out what your niche is my recommendation when it comes to that. But I wonder if you guys have learned any lessons the hard way when what have you learned the hard way when it comes to planning live events and delivering?
Ask me how many trailers I've totaled.
I don't want to know.
Only two.
Only 2 in 1 year.
In 1 year.
So, but, I mean, well, see, my background, when I lived in Southern California, I did events for 20 years. I even wrote a book about event horror stories. And I mean, it's the more details you can kind of think through in advance, the better it will be. Like what happens, we were at Romp It Up that, oh my gosh, the border hookups did. And they really said, what are people going to be doing and seeing and thinking at this time, and really tried to plan for that. And that's the way to do it, is what thought processes and actions are your audience going to be taking, and how do I make a good situation out of that?
Ever found yourself lost in the middle of nowhere with no signal? With the RV Life app, that's a thing of the past. Enjoy reliable offline navigation, lane guidance, and turn-by-turn voice directions, ensuring you're always on the right path. Navigate the open road with ease and confidence. Visit rvlife.com to download the app today and start exploring without limits.
Fantastic advice for anyone listening there. I see kind of two challenges in what you guys are doing. I'm sure you experience it every day. There's the pitching of the venues and the events and explaining who you are. And then there's the marketing of, getting the people to attend. So for the first part, what type of research are you doing to find these potential gigs? Where do you look, and what kind of outreach works best when you're talking to a rally manager or a dealership or a campground?
I think it's, hey, we want to go to this part of the country. Who's there, and can we sell them classes? Honestly, it's that simple. It's like, hey, we haven't been to this part of the country yet, or what's around there, and then what campgrounds and dealerships are near there, or are there groups? There's so many regional RVing groups. For example, the FMCA or FRVA now has all these regional chapters. I mean, there's so many opportunities to reach people, and it's so easy with social media now. You can target ads just geographically, all that sort of stuff. That there's 70 million people in the US. You just need to find some in an area, and there you go.
Does this outreach usually just take the shape of Google and picking up the phone and realizing, hey, there's a rally going on, who's the event manager, let's call them? Or how to explain the process of, like, I want to go work in this area, let's find a place and land it?
Basically that. It's
okay.
I want to go here. What campgrounds are near here? Are there any groups or organizations? I mean, sometimes there just aren't, right? But sometimes there's or we'll see, because we have a really robust online event calendar for RV events. So sometimes we look at that and go, oh, what's happening here? And how can we already are reaching out to the organizers to post their events on our calendars. So we have that contact information. And so it's just a collection of, because we also like these RV events, right? The Escapees and FRVA and on, vintage trailer rallies, on and on and on. And so that's another way to find the people.
Where are you looking for these RV events? Are you just searching, or Facebook, or word of mouth?
Peggy does such a good job with our online calendar that you can find them. I mean, it's more of a problem of, I want to go to these 5 events, but one is in New England, one's in Arizona, one's in Texas, or whatever. So it's more a matter of prioritizing.
And then what about marketing the workshops? Is that usually up to the host, or how do you get people to show up? Or if the host is marketing, how do you get more people to show up, especially when you're going somewhere where people don't really know you?
I would say for marketing, it's the host. We put that on them, but we'd be crazy not to do our own marketing, especially with the background that we have. So we will then find the dealerships and organizations and campgrounds in the area, and we have some back pages on our website, so we can hit them with emails and phone calls and say, hey, here's a description of this thing, and it really is helpful. And especially for RV dealerships, if you are sort of helping market this, it can really put you in good with your customers. So on campgrounds too, I mean, they know, a lot of these campgrounds see people do stuff, and it helps them to be kind of heroes to their audience as well.
Sure, that's fantastic. Let's take a step back a minute to back to StressLess Camping. You guys have this event calendar that many events you're teaching at, and your content creators. You got a weekly podcast, you got the current YouTube channel, you're juggling all sorts of stuff in the air. So what are your tips for frequently producing relative content for your target audience? How do you keep it fresh and determine who's the best guest or what topics to cover?
Dartboard? No, I'm just kidding. It's,
Blind luck.
Yeah, I mean, we're very fortunate in that we seem to have a good communication with at least a good number of our audience. And so we kind of have narrowed down who they are, and in many ways they're kind of us. So if we're super curious about something, typically so is our audience. Although we did just have a guy reach out and want to know about clothing optional camping. Nobody wants to see that on
We weren't very helpful.
We weren't very helpful with that. But I mean,
I see that quite often in my work campers group, and there's actually jobs out there at clothing optional campgrounds, and it gets ugly with the comments, and I usually have to turn those off, but they're legitimate. So you got to address it to that certain niche.
Yeah, so you figure out who you appeal to, because we're all different, and who you appeal to and what triggers them. And, like I say, a lot of it seems to be our audience is kind of a little bit us, in terms of they like the goofy stuff and tourist traps, and rather than, we are not the off-grid hiking, active lifestyle people by any stretch of the imagination. But if there's a brewery, I'm going. So that's kind of who has tended to follow us.
And sometimes as we're traveling from one, venue to another, one place to another, we'll maybe meet someone in a campground or, at a brewery, or we'll read about something or hear about something. And, it just kind of comes from different directions. Sometimes people reach out to us like, hey, I've been listening to your podcast, and do you want me to tell your listeners about what I do? And sometimes not, but
I'm sure people reach out to you, and sometimes it's like, oh, what a great idea, and other times you're like, no,
I think that's
just sometimes not a fit.
Yeah.
But speaking of niche, give me a short synopsis of StressLess Camping and the content you produce. Who is your target audience?
They are people who appreciate the quirky and unusual and want to make camping as stressless as possible.
Enjoy the fun part again. And, enjoy why we're out there doing that. But when you guys first reach out, you mentioned discussing misinformation people get on various social media channels. So what exactly do you mean by that, and how do you clear it up for your audience?
Oh boy. Well, if you go on any social media channel, right, somebody will ask a question like, how do I seal this roof? Or what do I do to lube the slide? Or whatever that is. And you'll get legitimate good answers and complete malarkey
that all sound the same.
Yeah, and
if you don't know.
Sometimes it's information that, in my opinion, could actually cause damage to the RV or harm to the individual. So what we try to do is provide verified answers, and sometimes that's, for example, slide room. Just look at Lippert's YouTube videos. They answer the questions and they design it, and that kind of stuff. So the idea is to try to provide a verified source of information, so that it's something that if they see something that we've put out, it's factual. And of course, sometimes things change, so we'll take down things that but we try more to really research stuff before we share it. Like, I'm not going to tell you how to maintain your diesel pusher, because that's outside my realm, but I can talk about towing weights and that sort of stuff till the cows come home.
And you're providing, verified information, like you said, and qualified content. That's exactly what we're doing at Tripods, and why we'll never have a Facebook group. In my Work Campers Facebook group, I get people asking tax advice, and I get people asking mechanical advice, and it's just outside the realm of the group. So it either doesn't get approved, or we explain, maybe you should read my book where we cover that in a certain chapter.
Yeah. Well, for example, people always ask about towable tires. We didn't really start providing answers until we got to interview the guy in charge of towable tires at Goodyear. You know, I mean, it was like, why are I toured the it's not really a factory, the plant where they provide the majority of towable tires for the RV industry. And we interviewed the guy from Goodyear. So I think we have information that is legit rather than
opinion.
Yeah, opinion.
And it comes back to, the Facebook where you'll get 200 different opinions that might be relevant to 200 different people, but it's not going to help you. So why not send them to a 3-day course or a website where they can actually cite sources? So that's wonderful what you're doing there. What's next for StressLess Camping? Are you guys planning to expand or have any course offerings coming up in new locations people should know about?
You can always look at our calendar for there's a page on the site that's RV Basic Training, and that has a list of where the classes are upcoming. Well, the classes that are publicly available, as I said, some groups, it's only for that group. And we're just going to keep doing more. We have avoided doing YouTube just because I have the face for radio.
We did.
Finally.
We did avoid it. We only started YouTube. Well, we had a YouTube channel, but there were, maybe 7 videos on it for the first 5 years. And then about a year ago, we got more active on YouTube and more like our podcast episode, but then more shorts and more kind of sidebar type of things and more YouTube. So that has been this has been kind of the year of YouTube. And I'd like for this coming year, as you asked before, like to make some of these resources that we, us not lecturing, but us like passing out that information as more of an online version.
Yeah, there's so much RV content out there. I'm just so glad I didn't hit the road and try to start teaching and explaining what we were doing in this era, because to stand out, you've really got to pick your niche or really battle to, get some numbers in there. But I do have a final question, almost a final question. You mentioned your podcast. Let's talk real quick. Tools and apps. What are you using to record? What are you using to, distribute the show? What tools and apps are you using to produce the podcast?
Oh, the nerdy stuff. This is my favorite.
This is the entrepreneur part. What tips do you have for people who want to start something like that?
It's so funny how, well, first of all, I'm going to go back a little bit and say there's always people who, like, let's say you want to be a photographer. What do I need to be a photographer? And it's really more a good eye, right? The tools, like, you don't need an entire tool chest to build a house. You just need basically a hammer and a saw. And so it's more about learning the skill of the craft rather than the tools. However, I really like the tools.
Sure.
So for the podcast, we use surprisingly just the camera either on the computer or on the phone. They're good enough because no one's expecting this Ansel Adams quality imagery for us babbling on the mics. And then the audio, we use Rode equipment exclusively just because it has worked out so well. So like our mixer is software based and we're using these Rode NT-USB mics, and sometimes on the Rode Wireless Pro mics, which are just outstanding. And then editing, we're using Final Cut Pro.
Okay. And where do you publish?
Riverside?
Oh, yeah. Well, we use Riverside to actually, to do a lot of recording, especially with remote guests.
And distribute to the different podcast platforms.
Well, no, we're using Libsyn for audio and then YouTube for video.
Got it. Wonderful. Thanks for all that. And I do have a final question. What's the one lesson you've taught dozens of times, but you still think it's like the most important thing every RVer needs to hear?
Oh, weigh your RV.
Fantastic advice. Yes. Thank you guys so much. If a campground or rally organizer is listening and wants to have you guys present, what's the best way to get in touch with you guys?
StressLessCamping.com.
All right. We're going to get all those show notes together and encourage everyone out there to check their event calendar, check out the podcast. Tony, Peggy, thank you so much for joining me. It's great to see you again.
Thank
Likewise.
you.
Good seeing you too.
It was really fun catching up with Tony and Peggy again. I first met them when Renee and I were on the StressLess Camping podcast in 2021. We discussed our Be More Dog book and talked all about our first couple years traveling the country with our three-legged dog Jerry and how that evolved into our own passion project at Tripods. But Tony and Peggy turned their passion for RVing into a profitable business model that helps support their travels and helps others. Did you catch that part about how they're helping others address the pain points common among many new RVers? And that, once again, comes back to finding purpose in what you do. Tony and Peggy are fulfilling that promise to their audience by providing verified information and quality content, as opposed to the misinformation found on most social platforms. If you've ever thought of teaching at live events on the road, hopefully you gained some insight from our key takeaways here, like book gigs around your route. Oh, and use RV Life Trip Wizard. Focus on real hands-on learning. Partner with hosts who will manage the event logistics. Know your niche and teach what you know. And if you're out there on the road striving to enjoy totally stressless camping, remember,
We always say it's more a goal than a reality.
Hey RVers, let's be real. Your RV showerhead isn't great. And even if you swapped it out for something better, chances are it's just a shinier version of the same old thing. And if you're really lucky, those stiff hoses kind of let you get wet, but definitely not where you want it. That's where Waterpik comes in. A global leader in water technology, they've designed the Transform RV showerhead to change the way you shower on the road, making it easier and more efficient to shower in tight RV spaces. While other RV showerheads have limited spray adjustments, the Transform RV's unique 360-degree pivoting head allows you to customize to any spray angle without having to remove it from the bracket. This means you can reach your desired spray area and shower with both hands free. This showerhead doesn't just work better, it feels better. It's engineered to deliver powerful, consistent water flow. Its multiple spray settings are optimized to get the most out of your water tank. And with the new trickle switch, you can conserve water without that shocking blast of cold or hot water when you turn it back on. It's available in white, chrome, and nickel. The Waterpik Transform RV showerhead is ready to upgrade your RV shower. Head over to Amazon and check it out now.